Do you want to see how I turned all my panels from my previous video into cards? If you haven't seen my video yet, please check it out after this one. I foiled um, several backgrounds, several panels, and on this video I am going to show you how I turned them all into cards. I have 9 cards. I used most of them. I only didn't use the one with the stars, but maybe I will, maybe. So, I just used ink blending on all of them. Spoiler alert. But I thought it would be the quickest and easiest way to do it because I made the mistake of foiling basically just white panels. And I didn't think this through. I didn't plan anything ahead. So I thought instead of foiling everything from scratch on colored cardstock, or onto a pre-ink blended background, I will just ink blend afterwards. And that just goes to show you that there's no problem with ink blending later. I had no problems with any of my panels. Actually, I find that because I ink blended after I foiled them, it kind of looks way better. Even the ones that I had loads of overfoiling, I like it way better after I put the ink on top. So this one I chose kind of teal shades, and I'm just ink blending from the lightest to the darkest diagonally. And I am speeding it up quite a bit because it's just ink blending, folks. If I have something else to add about it, I will tell you, but it's just ink blending. Um, the one thing that I'm gonna point out to you is I have 2 different brushes here. One is for the lighter shades and one for the darkest. I found that I had to do that because once I use any of my brushes for the darkest shades, I cannot use it again for the lightest. As you can see here, I'm getting like a few spots, and like the dark ink, unless you actually wash or clean your brushes in between, but you have to be kind of thorough when you clean. I haven't been able to use the lightest shade again. I will always get those spots of dark ink, and even now using the dark one, sometimes it will come with a blotch of the even darker. If you use these brushes, these makeup brushes, please let me know if you have a different experience, but that's how it's working for me. Like, I didn't want to get one for each color, but I did got for each shade, and then I felt like I had to get like each shade, also lightest and darkest. I also have different brushes for distress oxides because I believe that it's not very good if you mix them up. This one I'm ink blending a little bit different, so I put the lightest in the circle in the center, and then I'm applying the darkest shades around it, and the darkest will be just along the border. And this was one of my worst foiled backgrounds, but I'm gonna do something later to kind of disguise it. And I did something off camera that didn't help at all. I tried to cover some of the empty spots with a gold pen, like paint pen, and I didn't like the results either. So you see that it's a bit foil, it's a bit paint, but it's okay because we're gonna add something that's gonna kind of disguise it. It will pull the attention. So I am ink blending all of my panels first, and I'm gonna let them dry, and then I'll start assembling from the first that I started. That just gives them all some time to dry, but actually I kind of waited a long period of time in between. We're already on card number 3. So this one I used Victorian Velvet, if I'm not mistaken, in the center. It's the only one that I'm gonna use the oxides. I have a problem with my oxides because it's so humid where I live. My oxides overflow. Um, So you see that I pick up too much ink every time I try to refill my brush. But yeah, that's a me problem. There's nothing wrong with the inks. I added aged mahogany to the edges, so I have like a lighter color in the center and a darker one on the edges. And then I just come with a cloth and I buff it off to remove the ink that is sitting on top of the foil. I thought those colors would go great with the rose gold foil. This one didn't foil great. It wasn't perfect. So I thought that if I added kind of a bit of a darker color, it would disguise it a little bit better. So it's just a lot of detail in the background, but you can't see to me it has a bit of a grungy look. So all of these darker shades around the edges, they kind of disguise that the foil wasn't perfect, it wasn't great. But I'll be honest, maybe I'm biased. I do like the way it looks at the end. Like when it started, I thought, oh, I'm not gonna be able to make a card using this. I'm not gonna get any use out of these um, panels. And in the end, I really like how they look. Please tell me if I'm delusional. You can be honest, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but I really like how they look. Like, even this one, the foiling is so visibly bad. Oh my goodness. There are like spots where the foil folded and it didn't pick up at all, but I love the colors. Oh well, maybe it's me. This one and the next one, it will be kind of rainbow colors. So this one I added the warm colors and the next one will be cold. I always add like a lot of yellow. And when I use yellow, I try to start with the yellow because I don't want it to get contaminated by any other colors. And I just overlapped in the middle and I got orange. So I used only two colors for that one. This one, I'm actually going to use four colors. So I'm using purple, a dark blue, and then kind of a teal color or a blue, how do you call it? A turquoise blue, and then green. And I'm just going to overlap them a little bit as well to get that soft transition. And I got a weird pattern in between this one and the other one. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but there's a weird pattern there. But I don't care because I'm going to hide it behind the sentiment. So it's okay. This one, and there's another one coming up. I used the stencils to add some color to the roses. And this one, I made a huge mistake and I got ink everywhere because it didn't cover the top of the panel. And I'm gonna fussy cut it later, so it's okay. It's not a big problem. But I tried to erase it and it didn't go well, so I had to just fussy cut it later. And this one is only 2 layers. It's an older set that I have. And you see me fussy cutting. I don't like to fussy cut. I don't, but because it was one element, I did it and it didn't take that much time. It was okay. And I really like how it looks at the end. You just need to be very careful not to cut like too close to the foil. Otherwise, it might damage it. But that's it. Like I didn't leave that much space and it it went okay. I like the way it looks at the end. And this one, I'm gonna show you, I believe at the very end, how I did it. I'm just gonna put it aside to dry as well. I am showing you how I made all these cards with the supplies I have, but I really encourage you to go through your stash and see what you have and use whatever you have. This one you can barely see, but I did foil. Um, on my last video, if you watch that, you see how I did it. And I'm adding a very light layer of color. I actually started trying to do it with whatever I had left on my brushes, but I did have to bring the ink to some of them. And again, I added a huge chunk of yellow, the yellow first, and then on that yellow, I will overlap the pink, and that will give me orange. And then I added green and the turquoise. Here I'm adding a little bit of like darker blue and then purple. And I got a little bit of overfoiling on that rose, on that image, but I didn't want to erase it. And I thought I'm just going to ink blend and see how it looks. And I actually think it doesn't look that bad. Again, I might be delusional. You guys tell me. And here I'm adding the second layer, and it's exactly the same color as before, but I am adding like more ink, while the first layer I added with a very light hand. This second one, the details are very, very small, and I had to be very careful and blend in a certain way following the patterns so I wouldn't damage it. It's very intricate, it's very delicate, and if you do have a heavy hand like me, you might actually damage it. And then I'll show you the third layer here. And this one, I started adding those darker colors, and I brought my darker brushes. And for the fourth layer, same thing. I added the darkest color. I'm using the stencil, the foiling plate, and the inks are all Altenew that I use for this one. And Altenew makes it very easy if you want to ink blend, because they make their inks already in 4 shades of the same color. So you don't need to guess or um, like look for a certain color. They already make it very easy for you. And now you can see the detail of the foil. These are the sentiments, the Gina K sentiments that I foiled as well. And I just chose different shapes to die cut them. And I'm going to use them all on 3 cards that I lost the footage for. So I'll show you the cards at the end. But it's easy. I just added foam adhesive, double-sided adhesive to the back of them. And I added them to the panels. So it's no big loss. Now this one is the negative of those leaves that I die cut also on my previous video, and I'm gonna use it to make a card as if it's a panel, and it gives you an idea of foiling. I know it's kind of cheating, it's not real foiling, but it looks like it. I'm just gluing it down. The gold panel is actually bigger than my card panel, so I'm gonna trim down the excess, and then I'm gonna add all of these panels to the card base off camera because I did film it, but I lost the footage. So it's good for you if you're watching, because it will make the video way shorter. Okay, so this one, I'm going to hide my awful foiling in the back with some more leaves. These are the ones that I die cut on the last video. These are the ones from the previous card panel. And I'm just gonna kind of make them pointing inwards towards the center with the kind of the branch pointing to the outside, if that makes sense. And because they are so shiny, they kind of take the attention away from the rest. And this is where I lost some of the footage. So here I'm just gonna assemble all of the cards, and I'm just gonna add sentiments to all of them. This one, I chose a sentiment from Altenew. It's also a foiled sentiment. I didn't show myself foiling these sentiments on the previous video because I've had them for a while. But I'm just adding that on top of my flower with a ruler to make sure that it's straight. And even though I'm using 2 different kinds of foil, it looks great in the end, I think. This one is also foiled, but it's black, so it doesn't fight as much with the background. Because I have so much color and shine on the background, I wanted the sentiment to be a bit more neutral, I guess. So the attention can go to the background. And this one, I'm adding just a sentiment, which is going to be where I'm going to do for most of them, because of the shine on the background. I think they don't really need much. this one, um, I'm adding a happy birthday sentiment, but I'm gonna also add some sequins. The sequins are from Spellbinders, and they are also kind of a turquoise shade, so I think they went well together. I kind of just wish I had put that birthday a little bit more to the left. But these are things that you only see later, but it's okay. I don't hate it. Um, yeah, if I'm not showing this here because again, I wanted the video to be a bit more on the shorter side, but I did add double-sided foam adhesive, I believe, to all of my sentiments that I used on all 9 cards. And I'm just gonna glue down those sequins, and I'm gonna call this one done. I love the texture that this gold foil adds. It's not even. It's kind of, I don't know how to explain. To me, it has a bit of a rustic texture. Um, so this one, I'm adding one word and I'm gonna scatter also some sequins. And this sentiment is also from Altenew. The previous one was half Simon Says Stamp and half Pink Fresh Studio. The happy was from Pink Fresh Studio. And a few sequins here and there because even though it has a lot of foiling, I felt like it needed something else. I don't know, maybe it's too much. I do too much quite often. Here's the final result. I do like how it looks. And this one already has way too much as it is. So I'm just adding a sentiment. This sentiment I did the contrary of what I usually do. I put the gold in the back and I offset it a little bit. This one doesn't have like a shadow dye, so I use the same dye kind of as a shadow. I just offset it a little bit, and then I use a very dark gray. It's Midnight Green from Simon Says Stamp. And on top of that, two less dark green, I guess. But yeah, so there are 4 layers there and nothing else because there's too much on this card. I like the way it looks, but it is over the top. There's no other way to say this. Okay, for this one, this is the negative foiling from Dabarose. And I thought I just added a little bit of shine, and I'm gonna add the other foiled rose on top. And I'm gonna add some golden leaves behind it. My double-sided adhesive is exposed at this point, so I'm just adding the leaves before I stick it down because then the adhesive on the back of the rose will hold it all together. It will sandwich it, the leaves, if that makes sense. And then I'm gonna add another sentiment to it. The sentiment, if I'm not mistaken, is also by Altenew. It's also foiled, so there are 4 different ways of foiling on this card, which must be some kind of record. How much foiling can one person add to one card? You tell me. You tell me on the comments, please. Yes, the sentiment is by Altenew. It's also foiled, of course. And I'm not adding anything else. So there is a lot, but I think this one doesn't look as over the top as the other ones. You tell me, I might be wrong. Okay, so these are the ones that I lost the footage, and I just added those sentiments. You saw me preparing those backgrounds and ink blending them. There is foam also in the back of the panels. These are all 9 cards. Please consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.